So he prays to heaven so that a meeting, a face-to-face combat can be there where he can do what he pleases with Macbeth. Hello and welcome back to Nibblepop. We are doing a thorough textual reading of Macbeth, and today in this video we are going to look at the third and final scene of the fourth act. This is a very important scene because in this scene we will be seeing the interaction between Malcolm and Macduff in England. Stay with me till the end of this video for a detailed line-by-line explanation of this scene. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so yet. Turn on that notification bell so that you get regular updates of all our uploaded videos. This is Monami Mukherjee. Welcome once again. Up till now, we were in Scotland. This scene will take us to England. Earlier, we have seen that Macduff had decided to go and meet Malcolm so that they could join forces and take revenge of Duncan's murder and place Malcolm on his rightful throne. So without wasting any more time, let's just begin the scene. The scene is England, a room in the King's Palace. Enter Malcolm and Macduff. Let us seek out some desolate shade and there weep our sad bosoms empty. So Malcolm, who is definitely very sad for what has happened to him in Scotland, he wants to weep with Macduff and he wants a desolate place, a lonely place, because again, men shouldn't cry in front of others. Let us rather hold fast the mortal sword. Macduff does not want to weep. He thinks that if he weeps, that will weaken him, and instead he wants to hold on to his strong desire of revenge. And like good men, bestride our downfall birthdom. Each new morn, new widow's howl. He is now describing the state of Scotland. That Scotland has become such a hellhole that every day there is new murder, new massacre. New widows howl, new orphans cry, new sorrows strike heaven on the face, that it resounds as if it felt with Scotland and yelled out like syllable of dolor. Dolor means pain, dolor means an extreme state of sorrow. This is the condition of Scotland. What I believe, I'll wail. What I know, believe. Look at Malcolm's response. What I believe, I'll wail. What know, believe. And what I can redress, as I shall find the time to, friend, I will. Malcolm is saying that he's going to believe and will try to do whatever is there in his power to bring back peace to Scotland. What you have spoke, it may so perchance. This tyrant, he's referring to Macbeth, this tyrant whose sole name blisters our tongues. It's almost like they are not naming Macbeth in the same way that Lord Voldemort was not named by characters in Harry Potter, because his name is so venomous, so poisonous that you cannot utter the name. So they are referring indirectly to Macbeth, calling him a tyrant, whose sole name blisters our tongues, was once thought honest. Now, this is a strange thing which is happening here, you see. Malcolm is saying that Macbeth was once thought to be an honest man and now he has become like this monster. Is he expressing a suspicion of Macduff here then? That Macduff, who is also known as an honest man, can become a dishonest man, or maybe he is referring to something else. You have loved him well. He hath not touched you yet. Now, this is where I want you to understand one thing. See, the play of Macbeth is about these evil feelings. It's not just about evil actions. The play of Macbeth is about evil emotions, suspicion, unrest. And this feeling of suspicion crosses the national border and reaches England, because now we see Malcolm suspicious of Macduff. He thinks that Macbeth has not touched Macduff yet. How he can trust Macduff, because once Macduff was a friend of Macbeth. What is the guarantee that Macbeth has not sent Macduff to actually lure Malcolm into his folds and murder him like his father? So he's saying, you have loved him well, he hath not touched you yet. We know that Macduff has been touched. His life is massacred. In the previous scene itself, we have seen how Macbeth's murderers had killed his wife and kid brutally. Malcolm doesn't know this yet. Macduff doesn't know this yet. So now you understand why killing of Macduff's family is important from the point of view of the play, because that will solidify Malcolm's faith in Macduff in future when he gets to know about the incident. Now he doesn't know it. Yet I am young, but something you may deserve of him through me. Maybe you would gain something from Macbeth when you give me to him as an offering, and wisdom to offer up weak, poor, innocent lamb to appease an angry god. Angry god is Macbeth here, and Malcolm says to Macduff that how can I be sure that you are not going to sacrifice me as the lamb to please that angry god? Macduff is really hurt. I am not treacherous, but Macbeth is a good and virtuous nature may recoil in an imperial charge. Imperial means royal, something which is related to the king. So when a king gives an order, then even the virtuous people, they have to accept it. So maybe that Macbeth has given you some order, but I shall crave your pardon. That which you are, my thoughts cannot transpose. Angels are bright still. Malcolm knows that the problem with treachery is that a traitor looks like an innocent person, but an innocent person also looks like an innocent person. So he says that angels are bright still, though the brightest fell. What a beautiful line to connect Macbeth to Lucifer himself. He was the greatest and brightest of angels, and he fell. Macbeth was the greatest and brightest of nobles. He fell too. This parallel is very disturbing. But this parallel again connects to that Porter scene. So you see, these lines are infused with this idea of dramatic irony, where you get to remember the previous scenes, the previous statements made, and you can see how this Bellona's bridegroom has become this monster now. Though all things foul would wear the brows of grace, yet grace must still look so. Fair is foul and foul is fair. But at the same time, fair also looks like fair. So how can he be sure if Macduff is really a good man now with good intentions, or if he is pretending to be one? I have lost my hopes. Macduff feels hopeless because Malcolm doesn't trust him. Perchance, even there, where I did find my doubts, now Malcolm is trying to justify his doubts. Why is he suspicious of Macduff? Why in that rawness left you wife and child? Those precious motives, those strong knots of love. See, if Scotland is scary, why did you leave your family there? So that is creating suspicion in him. Without leave taking, I pray you, let not my jealousies be your dishonors. He doesn't want to disrespect Macduff, but mine own safeties. He is doing this to secure himself. So we find a level-headed man here, a man who does not easily trust anyone. Compare Malcolm to Macbeth, somebody who trusts three weird creatures who definitely look very sinister. Compare that to Malcolm, who doesn't want to trust the noble Macduff, whom he knows to be an honest man throughout. So this is the difference between Malcolm and Macbeth. Malcolm wants to judge and decide what is best for his future. You may be rightly just, whatever I shall think. Macduff is totally in despair. Bleed, bleed, poor country. He knows that if Malcolm doesn't trust him, if Malcolm is not going to go with him, then there is no hope for Scotland. Great tyranny, lay thou thy bases sure, for goodness dare not check thee. Goodness, represented by Malcolm, is not ready to control, to check the tyranny of Macbeth. Wear thou thy wrongs. So he is now going on addressing his country. The title is afeard. Fare thee well, Lord. I would not be the villain that thou thinkest for the whole space that's in the tyrant's grasp. Even if you give me the whole of Scotland, I still will never be the tyrant which you think I might be, and the rich east to boot. and Scotland plus some other lands. I will never be the traitor which you call I might be. Be not offended. So this distrust is a natural result of what has happened to Malcolm. And he goes on saying, I speak not as in absolute fear of you. I think our country sinks beneath the yoke. Yoke is that wooden structure which is placed on the neck of bulls pulling cart or ploughing the field. So yoke is like a weight, a burden which you have to carry. So Macbeth's rule is like a burden on Scotland. It's like a yoke. I think our country sinks beneath the yoke. It weeps, it bleeds, and each new day a gash is added to her wounds. She is wounded further and further every day, more and more. I think withal there would be hands uplifted in my right. I know I have supporters. Hands uplifted in my right. And here, from gracious England have I offered of goodly thousands. Even the English king is going to help me with thousands of people. But for all this, when I shall tread upon the tyrant's head, when I'll go and kill Macbeth, or wear it on my sword, yet my poor country shall have more vices than it had before. Trust me, if I go kill Macbeth and become the king of Scotland, Scotland will have an equally bad king. He is calling himself equally bad. Why? More suffer and more sundry ways than ever by him that shall succeed. So he is saying that the king who is going to replace Macbeth is going to be a worse king. What should he be? Now Macduff is curious. He is surprised. It is myself, I mean. So he is calling himself a worse person than Macbeth. And what are his bad qualities? In whom I know all the particulars of vice. Vice means negative qualities, its opposite of virtue, so grafted that when they shall be opened, black Macbeth will seem as pure as snow. Compared to my problems, my evil doings, my intentions, my nature, Macbeth is an angel. And the poor state esteem him as a lamb, being compared with my confineless harms. I am going to cause so much harm to Scotland that people would regret having me as the king. Who speaks like this? Not in the legions of horrid hell can come a devil more damned in evils to top Macbeth. How can you say this? Macbeth is the worst thing possible, even in hell. Now Malcolm is explaining. I grant him bloody. Yes, he loves to murder. Luxurious, avaricious. Avaricious means somebody is greedy. False, deceitful, sudden, malicious, smacking of every sin that has a name. Yes, Macbeth has all these problems. But what I have is worse. But there is no bottom, none, in my voluptuousness. What is voluptuousness? It's like his desire to please his sexual needs. Your wives, your daughters, your matrons, and your maids could not fill up the cistern of my lust. I have this empty vessel inside me of lust, and no matter how many women I have, I'm never satisfied. That's a bad thing. And my desire all continent impediments would overbear, that did oppose my will. Better Macbeth than such a one to reign. So he thinks that such a lecherous person shouldn't be a king because he's going to abuse his power and exploit women. Macduff is trying to argue about this. Boundless intemperance in nature is a tyranny. Yes, it's not right. It's not right to be, so limitless in lust. It hath been the untimely emptying of the happy throne and fall of many kings. So lust has been responsible for the fall of many kings. But fear not yet to take upon you what is yours. So clearly Macduff doesn't really care about the women he's going to exploit and abuse, because he thinks that all women belong to him. So what's wrong if he takes them? You may convey your pleasures in a spacious plenty. There will be, women crowded around you. They would love to offer their services to you voluntarily. And yet seem cold the time you may so hoodwink. We have willing dames enough. There will be willing women, enough willing women to satisfy you. There cannot be that vulture in you to devour so many and will to greatness dedicate themselves. Women will be dedicating themselves to you. So you are not a vulture. You will have enough women about you, finding it so inclined. Now Malcolm talks about a second evil thing in him. With this, there grows in my most ill-composed affection such a staunchless avarice, greed. So I'm lusty, I'm greedy. That were I a king, I'm so greedy that if I become the king, I should cut off the nobles for their lands, desire his jewels and this other's house, and my more having would be as a sauce to make me hunger more. So no matter how much wealth he accumulates, exploiting the nobleman, is going to crave for more. That I should forge quarrels. I will want wealth so much that I will make people fight each other in unjust quarrels, destroying them for wealth. For Macduff, this is a worse problem. This avarice sticks deeper. This is a bigger problem. Grows with more pernicious root than summer seeming lust. Now for him, being a sexual predator is okay, but being a person who attacks noblemen and kills them is not okay. So he wants this problem solved. And it hath been the sword of our slain kings. So the kings who were attacked by their nobles and killed were people like these. So you have to be careful about this. Yet do not fear. So Macduff is so desperate to have Malcolm that is ready to forgive these self-confessed sins or self-confessed evil intent. Scotland hath foisons to fill up your will. Foisons means plenty. Scotland has so much wealth and land and resources that you will be so satisfied being the king of Scotland. Of your mere own. All these are portable with other graces weighed. You see, when a person has a lot of good qualities, these little things can be tolerated. But I have none. But I don't have any good quality. The king becoming graces such as justice, verity, temperance, stableness, bounty, perseverance, mercy, lowliness, devotion, patience, courage, fortitude. I have no relish of them. So he lists, catalogues the qualities of a good king, and he says he doesn't have these qualities. But abound in the division of each several crime. I rather have a lot of evil things in me, acting in many ways. Nay, had I power, I should pour the sweet milk of concord into hell. If I had the power, I would turn heaven into hell. Uproar the universal peace, confound all unity on earth. Like I'm really messed up in my head. I don't like peace. I don't like concord. Now Macduff is totally broken. Oh, Scotland, Scotland. Now Malcolm asks a very nice question here. If such a one be fit to govern, speak. I am, as I have spoken. So I am not giving you any false hopes here. Am I fit to govern? Fit to govern? No, not to live. O nation, miserable, with an untitled tyrant, bloody sceptred, when shalt thou see thy wholesome days again? So he is so sad for Scotland. Macbeth is not entitled to the throne. He is not the true inheritor of the throne. He is a tyrant. And this Malcolm is such a hopeless possibility that Macduff doesn't even want to consider him as a possibility anymore. Since that the truest issue of thy throne by his own interdiction stands accused. He is accusing himself. He is confessing to such heinous criminal tendencies and does blaspheme his breed. It's like his bloodline is corrupted. What hope do we have now? Thy royal father was a most sainted king, the queen that bore thee oftener upon her knees than on her feet. On her knees means when a person prays, that person is on their knee. So the queen spent more time praying than standing up. She was such a virtuous lady. Your father was such a virtuous king. We all know Duncan. He was a really sweet man, a really good person. And this is what their son looks like. Died every day she lived, fare thee well. These evils thou repeatest upon thyself hath banished me from Scotland. So I have no hope of seeing Scotland as my nation anymore. Oh, my breast, thy hope ends here. Now, this is the point where Macduff reaches the nadir, the lowest point of his hope. And this is the point where Malcolm finally trusts Macduff. He realizes that this man, if he was sent by Macbeth, would have taken him away no matter what he heard. But Macduff, refusing to accept Malcolm as the king, makes Malcolm understand that Macduff is a real lover of his country and not a spy sent by Macbeth. Because then he wouldn't have said that I don't want you as the king. You are not fit to even live. Now he's saying the real truth. Macduff, this noble passion, your anger, your emotion, child of integrity, now this shows your real honesty, hath from my soul wiped the black scruples, reconciled my thoughts, so it has taken away the suspicion. Now I trust you. To thy good truth and honour, devilish Macbeth, by many of these trains hath sought to win me. Now he has been subject to these kinds of spies all along. Macbeth had been sending to him messengers with the similar message that join forces with me, let's go and attack Macbeth. But these people were false people sent by Macbeth. And that is why Malcolm was so wary, so suspicious. And modest wisdom plucks me from over-credulous haste. So I am not comfortable believing somebody, trusting somebody in hurry. But God above, deal between thee and me. For even now I put myself to thy direction. I am going to be with you. You are going to guide me. And unspeak mine own detraction. I have spoken against myself. I'll be unspeaking now, which means I'm denying everything that I've said about myself. Here abjure the taints and blames I laid upon myself. So I'm not the monster which I painted myself to be. I am yet unknown to woman. So forget about being a lusty man, he's a virgin. So he doesn't even have any relationship with any single woman even. Never was forsworn, I never broke a promise. Scarcely have coveted, desired what was mine own. So I don't even have desire for things which I own. Forget about things which others own. At no time broke my faith, would not betray the devil to his fellow, and delight no less in truth than life. So yes, he has all the qualities of a good king. The qualities which Macduff really wanted in Malcolm. And delight no less in truth than life. My first false speaking was this upon myself. Now this is too much. I mean, people lie all the time. But then yes, false speaking in the sense, words which carry significance. So he has always been truthful in his life, and this is the first time he has lied about himself. What I am truly is thine, and my poor country's to command. Whether indeed before thy here approach, old Seward, so before you came here, approached me, old Seward is the Earl of Northumberland. He had promised him that he will be helping with army, with 10,000 warlike men already at a point was setting forth. So he's now talking to Macduff that they were already planning an attack, and he now feels grateful that he has Macduff to guide him, because Macduff is a first class fighter and a very capable general. So he feels very secure under Macduff. Macduff is totally confused now. Such welcome and unwelcome things at once. It's hard to reconcile. So, see, you had just made me feel like killing myself, and now you are giving me like so much good things to digest. I don't know how to react. After this, a very important thing happens. Ross enters. Macduff asks him a very general question. Stand Scotland where it did? So, is everything fine there? Or, in other words, is everything as bad there as I had seen when I had left? Alas, poor country. Now, Ross has come here to inform Macduff about his family, but he's talking about Scotland because it's very difficult for him to muster the courage and inform Macduff that on a personal level he is totally lost. It cannot be called our mother. So our country cannot be called our mother. It is our grave now. But our grave, where nothing but who knows nothing is once seen to smile, where sighs and groans and shrieks that rend the air are made not marked. So it has become a normal thing to hear screams, to hear chaos. Where violent sorrow seems a modern ecstasy, the dead man's knell is there scarce asked for who. When a man dies, the knell is rung, it's a bell. But death has become so common now that people have stopped asking whenever a knell is rung that for whom is the bell ringing. And good men's lives expire before the flowers in their caps, dying or ere they sicken. So it's all about death and anarchy. Oh, relation, too nice and yet too true. So nice means elaborate, detailed. Malcolm senses that there must be some additional information for which Ross has come. What's the newest grief? So is there any new news you want to tell us? That of an hour's age doth hiss the speaker, each minute deems a new one. What is new? If I tell you something, then within a minute another thing becomes a new horror. So he's trying to avoid the question. Now a direct question from Macduff. How's my wife? Why? Well, she's dead, come on. And all my children? Well, too. The tyrant has not battered at their peace? See the words here, peace. What peace is Macduff referring to? The peace of life. What peace will Ross refer to? The peace of death. The same thing, peace, but so different in meaning. No, they were well at peace when I did leave them. They were so peaceful. Now Macduff is impatient. Be not a niggard of your speech. So, be not a niggard of your speech. How goes it? So, he's very impatient now. When I came hither to transport the tidings which I have heavily borne, when I have come here to give you the information, there ran a rumour of many worthy fellows that were out. So, he had heard a rumour when he was coming here. And this rumour was about this combined force of Malcolm, the King of England, and Macduff. So he's talking about that rumour now. Your eye in Scotland would create soldiers. So I, in this case, your presence in Scotland will create soldiers out of people. They will be supporting you. Malcolm is feeling happy about it and hopeful too. Now Ross comes to the main point. Would I could answer this comfort with the like, if I could really be comfortable, if I could offer you the same kind of happy news. But I have words that would be howled out in the desert air where hearing should not latch them. I have such news which should not be heard by anybody. What concern they? The general cause, something like general political stuff happening? Or is it a fee grief? Is it a personal thing for which you pay a personal emotional tax due to some single breast? No mind that is honest, but in it shares some woe. Any honest man will feel that this is not a personal grief, because any honest man will feel saddened by this. But though the main part pertains to you alone, but the content of this news is regarding you. If it be mine, keep it not from me, quickly have it. Let not your tongues despise my tongue forever. Please don't hate me. Which shall possess them with the heaviest sound that ever yet they heard. I'm going to tell you something which is beyond anything that you've ever heard. I guess at it. Now he already knows, perhaps. Your castle is surprised, your wife and babe savagely slaughtered, to relate the manner where on the quarry of these murdered deer to add the death of you. They died mercilessly. If I were to tell you how, it would kill you. Merciful heaven! The reaction comes from Malcolm, who was saying that Macbeth has not touched you yet. Now he feels that's the irony of the statement. This is how the dramatic irony is working itself out. That Macbeth has touched Macduff in a very, very below the belt manner. Merciful heaven, what man? Never pull your hat upon your brows. Give sorrow words. Macduff is not speaking, he is speechless. Malcolm wants him to speak, to voice out his sorrows. Grief that does not speak whispers the overfraught heart and bids it break. My children too? Wife, children, servants, all that could be found. And I must be from thence. My wife killed too. So he's lost. He is incoherent. He doesn't know how to process this information right now. I have said, Malcolm tries to comfort him. Be comforted. Let's make us medicines of our great revenge to cure this deadly grief. I have lost my father. You have lost your family. Although technically, like, both are not the same things. Like, Macduff has suffered worse, actually, considering the fact that he had lost his babies too. But Malcolm tries to console him, saying that we have our griefs and let's just make medicines out of it. Let's get strong because of them. He has no children. All my pretty ones. Did you say all? Oh, hell kite. So he is calling Macbeth the hell kite, the vulture kind of a bird. All? Would all my pretty chickens and on their dam at one fell swoop, like a kite swoops down. Kite is a bird of prey. Macbeth has done the same thing and killed everything in his family, everyone in his family. Disputed like a man. Malcolm knows that Macduff needs to pull himself together because Malcolm needs Macduff, just in the same way Macduff needs Malcolm. So he cannot let Macduff disintegrate, break down. I shall do so. Yes, I will dispute it like a man. I will deal with it like a man. But I must also feel it as a man. I'm not feeling human anymore. I cannot but remember such things that were most precious to me. So he has completely lost a grip on himself. Did heaven look on and would not take their part? Heaven doesn't take its part. Like, heaven was quite quiet when Duncan was being murdered. Heaven was quite silent when Banquo was killed. So definitely heaven doesn't come to the rescue. Sinful Macduff. Now he calls himself responsible for what has happened to his family, which is in a way true. They were all struck for thee, not that I am, not for their own demerits, but for mine. Not means I am useless, I am of no value. Because for me, these souls were attacked and killed. Heaven rest them now. Be this the whetstone of your sword. Whetstone is the stone on which you sharpen knives and swords So this grief will be like the whetstone on which Macduff will sharpen his desire for revenge. Let grief convert to anger, blunt not the heart, enrage it. So Malcolm wants Macduff to make use of this anger. Oh, I could play the woman with mine eyes and braggart with my tongue, but gentle heavens cut short all intermission front to front. I want to weep like a woman right now. But then he prays that I could do that. I could weep like a woman, but he wants to do that later. Now, what he prays? Bring thou this fiend of Scotland at myself. So he prays to heaven so that a meeting, a face-to-face combat can be there where he can do what he pleases with Macbeth. Within my sword's length set him. If he escape, heaven forgive him too. So in that encounter, if he manages to escape, then just forgive him. Which means he is going to be the end of Macbeth. This tune goes manly. That's how you should behave. Come, go we to the king. Our power is ready. Our lack is nothing but our leave. So all that is left to be done is to take leave of our king. Macbeth is ripe for shaking, and the powers above put on their instruments. Receive what cheer you may. The night is long that never finds the day. So he wants Macduff to comfort himself as much as he can, because next day they are going to set out on this greatest adventure, the adventure to pull down Macbeth. This brings us to the end of the 4th act, and as we enter the last phase of the play, the 5th act, we will see how this whole story has been a story about isolation, how isolation is the ingredient of tragedy. Because while on one hand, we have the isolated figures of Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, who were together in the beginning. Now, on the other hand, we have this team working against Macbeth. So definitely, within the scheme of things, isolated figures will be defeated and united efforts will survive and win. The next scene, scene 1 of Act 5, the sleepwalking scene, is going to be the best scene you have come across in this play and perhaps in any other play by Shakespeare or his contemporaries. I'll be really happy to have you with me in my next session. Till then, stay subscribed, stay happy and stay very, very safe. This is Monami Mukherjee signing off. It was wonderful to have you with us.